Hi, my name's Lauren, and today we're gonna paint a sunset together. Ooh. It's my first time doing a YouTube video, so be nice to me. First of all, you'll need something to paint on. I like to use wood because the texture is very smooth. You can also use a canvas, you can use a piece of paper, or you can use a cardboard box, whatever tickles your fancy. You'll need some brushes. I like to get mine at Michael's. You'll also need some paint. So if it's your first time, I'd recommend using acrylic. It comes off in water, it's very forgiving, it just dries kind of quickly. If you're feeling fancy, you can go for oil paint. I like to use the Artist Loft oil paints from Michael's. You can get a set of 24 for about $12. You can't beat that value. It blends really easily. It just takes a long time to dry, but the color is very saturated and pretty. But remember, oil and water don't mix, so if you are using oil, be sure to get some thinner to rinse your brush off in between colors. So let's go ahead and get started. Boop! So these are the colors we're going to be using today. I like to use the whole rainbow, obviously. A lot of whites and reds and yellows, greens, blues. Just go ahead and put the whole color wheel on your palette and we'll get started from there. So grab whatever it is you're going to paint on. If you're using wood, be sure to sand it down, get rid of any rough edges, any flyaway pieces of wood. Be sure to prime it. I use gloss medium to prime mine so you can see through to the wood surface. If you don't prime your wood that you paint on, you'll be sorely disappointed because all your paint will get soaked into the wood and you'll have a really tough time. So be sure to prime it. Again, I like to use gloss medium to prime. Be sure to get all your edges. You can also use gesso to prime, but that's going to turn it all white like these canvases. So what I always do first is I sketch a tiny little outline of what it is I'm going to be working with. Be sure to get your reference photo if you're working with one. The way I start is I always start with the lightest part of the sunset, so the yellows, and then I do the pinks, and then the greens, and then I'll do the grass. So here goes the yellow. And again, that's just yellow and white mixed together to make a light yellow. Now I'm going to go into some of these pink areas, so I mix in some of my peach and my red and my white together using that same brush that some of my yellow is on to keep that pink nice and warm. I don't want it to be too cool. And I'm just going around my yellow. The brush I'm using is a rounded filbert. I like its edges. When I'm painting my skies, I like to work with a sort of diagonal. I think that makes a more interesting perspective coming from one angle to another. Makes it look like it goes back into space. I don't like it to be too horizontal looking. What I'm doing now is adding some highlights to the top of my pink clouds. I just picked up some white with my brush, and on the top of my clouds I'm just adding a little bit of my white to have a little light pink. Now I'm going for some blue, so again that's white and blue mixed together. I'm going to add some purple in there to give it a sort of cooler touch. So underneath the pink clouds is where I'm adding my purple right now. So now I mixed up a lighter blue, so just add a little bit more white to give it some contrast to that darker blue and purple in there. Be sure you're getting in all the nooks and crannies, and be sure you're painting on top of your pink. You want there to be blending, you want it to have this seamless evolution between the colors. A lot of my painting students get scared for their paint to touch and you see through to the edges. Don't get scared for your paint to mix. The beauty of using oil paint is that the paint is going to mix, but it'll look more natural and organic if the paint mixes and blends into itself. Right now I'm taking my pink brush, and there's not a lot of paint on it, but I'm sort of using my pink brush to blend between the purple and the blue and the pink together. Here I'm adding a little bit of hot pink, so a cooler toned red and white mixed together to give a little bit of interest on the bottom of my pink clouds. Give it some value and definition. And again, you want it to blend together, so don't be afraid to have your paint mix into itself. Here's some light blue again. Now I've got white mixed with a little bit of yellow. I don't really like to use just plain white. I think that's too bright. So it's white with a little bit of yellow. And I'm giving some spotted clouds at the top, adding some highlights to my clouds on the bottom. And again, blend, blend, blend. Always blend. It'll soften your brush strokes, make it look more natural. Blend, blend, blend some more. Blendy, blendy, blendy. All the blends. Blend, blend, blend. So now I've mixed up a darker blue, so a little bit of blue into that light blue. The darker blue is going to be towards the top left-hand corner, and as I work my way down, it's going to get a little bit lighter. And again, you want to paint on top of that white, have it blend together. It'll look more natural. You want your clouds to look fluffy, and if you don't blend your paints together, the two shades into one another, it won't look fluffy. So see right now that cloud is unblended, it looks unnatural. What I need to do is blend, 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 blendy, blendy, blend, 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 blend. Now it's going to look more like a natural fluffy cloud as opposed to a floating hard shape. You want it to look soft. I've added some of my purple to the bottom of these white clouds, some purple to my upper left-hand corner to give some definition. Now I'm just doing some details at the bottom, bringing some of my colors down. Just adding colors apparently wherever I feel like. Blendy, 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 blend, 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 blendy, blendy, blend. Hey, what do you call a one-legged hippo? A hoppo. So towards the bottom of your sunset, you want little tiny baby clouds to look like they're far away. And here we are. Here's our sky. Now we're going to start to add the tree line. It's going to be a darker green. So I got light green, medium green, and I got some Payne's gray. Payne's gray is a bluish black that's not as vacuous as just regular black. So I'm mixing my green and my Payne's gray together. I'm going to add some blue. I'm going to add some red. I want to sort of make it have some substance to it. If you only use dark green, it's not going to look as rich as you want it to do. So use a smaller brush for the tree line, and what I'm doing is kind of stamping on top. That'll give you the sort of tree-like texture, looking like it has leaves and branches and stuff like that. So I'm going to take that all the way across, and you want it to be uneven, you want it to be natural and organic looking, just stamping away towards the top, and then brushing on the bottom. Remember, stamp, stamp, stamp to get that texture so it looks like trees and leaves. Right now I'm just adding touches of black to give it a little bit of dimension, add some shadows in there. Alright, now for the green grass at the bottom, I've just picked up some of my light green, and I'm using this same brush that I have that dark green mixture on already, so it's sort of blending as it goes. I'm going to widen my grass just a little bit. Now I'm mixing up some dark green, and I'm starting to add some vertical texture so it looks like grass over here. I'm just sort of stamping and dragging down to give it some more organic texture so it looks like leaves and foliage and brush. So mixing up a darker green to add some value and dimension in there. Now I'm adding some lighter colors. You want to have some depth, so a range of value between light, medium, and dark. I'm focusing my light areas actually towards the road, which isn't good atmospheric perspective, but because the road has all the light, there's going to be lighter grass towards the road. You want to have a range of value. Now we're going to start doing the road. So first stop is the railing. So the curb, paint that white. I'm clearly struggling with my frayed brush. Now we need to paint the road, so I mixed up Payne's gray and white and a little bit of blue. Towards the viewer is going to be a little bit lighter. As I go back into space, it's going to actually not follow atmospheric perspective conventions, get a little darker as we're getting into the woods. Be sure you're going all the way to the edge of your forest line, blending that together. You don't want to have any empty areas of unpainted space. Here I am struggling to fill in this tiny area with my large brush because I'm refusing to pick up my tiny brush. I'm going to add some dark gray towards my curb. Give it a level of value. Here I am trying to straighten out that curb. So just adding some road details like the lane divider lines with the white. Adding some value to the edge of the curb. Now you can choose to paint the cars if you want to. They're kind of these amorphous blobs that I add in there at some point in time, but you can leave it empty if you'd rather not have those man-made conventions in there, if you want it to be a more natural and pure sunset. And if this is where you want to stop, feel free. I'm going to add some of the road details, but if you'd rather keep it more natural with focusing on just the foliage, you can leave out the details that I'm about to add in a second. So here I am adding some more depth to the foliage and the grass, a little bit lighter green on top to give it some more interest. So I'm sort of stamping and then brushing it down. You want to have these thin brush strokes to make it look like grass, and be sure to have it changing direction, be slightly irregular so it looks like nature. You don't want it to be too organized, too patterned, too specific, but whatever tickles your fancy. So here I am struggling to add the yield sign, so I just picked up some plain red and a tiny brush. I really liked in the photo the balance that the red yield sign created. I liked the contrast. I liked how it connected the sky to the road, to the ground, but it's very difficult. So now we're going to add the, what do they call those, support bars that hold it up? Sticks? We're adding the sticks that bring it down. Be sure at the bottom where the sticks go into the grass that you add a little bit of value so it looks like it has some shadow, like it belongs there, like it's not just stuck on top of it, sort of blending it into its ground. So I have a darker red. I just added some Payne's Gray to my red. I wanted to give the yield sign some more natural elements, like maybe it's weather beaten, it's a little bit dirty. You don't want it to be all too one color. Just like your sky has multiple colors, every part of your painting should have multiple colors. Now I'm adding the details of the, what are those called? Power lines. So you have to use a teeny tiny little brush. I just have Payne's Gray on my teeny tiny little brush to add the power lines as they go to the right side back into space. They get shorter, smaller. You really have one shot to do the power line before that's it. So, say a prayer to Jesus and draw your power lines if you're feeling up to it. And if you don't want to add those in, if that seems too man-made, then please feel free to leave those out. It is your sunset to do as you'd like to do. I'm adding some finishing touches like some road signs, some highlights, and we're wrapping up our sunset. Thanks so much for tuning in with me, you guys. I really appreciated having you. I'd love to see the things that you created. I'd love if you sent me pictures if you happen to paint this sunset. And that's it. I really hope to see all the things that you make. Be sure and send me pictures and messages if this was helpful to you. And major thank you to Aly Murrell for sending me that sunset picture yesterday. It really inspired something nice. So thanks for tuning in. I hope to hear from you. Bye.